Haven't met. I'm Jeff Harder, Associate University Librarian at the University of Alberta, Treaty 6 territory, and currently the chair of the Digital Preservation Working Group, also known as DPWG, for Carl. So I'd like to, maybe I'll just start by acknowledging that we're super grateful to have everybody on the call today. Whether you work directly in digital preservation or you support stewardship efforts at your institution through whatever the roles are that you perform. Conversations like this really do matter. I know that time is always the most precious commodity, so know that your participation is deeply appreciated. It's really wonderful to have this many people on the call this morning or afternoon, wherever you're from. So a little bit about DPWG, the Carl Digital Preservation Working Group. It brings together a committed group of professionals from across academic libraries and research supporting organizations in Canada. We report to Carl's Advancing Research Committee, or ARC as it's known. Our mandate's really to advance digital preservation practice nationally, foster collaboration, consider scale, consider national opportunities, and generally just help propose or coordinate action to help make progress on the many challenges that all of us face in preserving born digital and digitized content. So it's volunteer labor, it's a coalition of the willing. People are often doing this work off the side of some pretty full desks, but I can say it's just an incredibly incredible group of creative and engaged people to be working with, people who very much care about preservation and long-term access to information. All of us, I think, are pretty action-oriented, which helps lead to hopefully some tangible outcomes. So as part of identifying and developing capacity for all of our organizations, we're looking at a whole variety of different opportunities for things like shared infrastructure, shared expertise, tracking emerging trends and methods to help assess and grow our capabilities, understand the risks, try to measure our maturity when it comes to digital preservation programs and activities. And also that the important pieces around policies and practices that strengthen our digital preservation capacity across not just Carl, but really the broader community. So importantly, we also focus on trying to strengthen and build out existing or new partnerships. This is about collaboration more than it's about competition. And we're trying to work and complement what's happening with a variety of different national organizations, regional networks, consortia, and international initiatives. So I think today's webinar is going to be part of that commitment that we have to community building and openness and shared learning. All of us being willing to talk about the good, the bad, the ugly when it comes to digital preservation. And of course, reporting out on the At Risk North 3 event, which a number of you probably were at, and some of you may not have been, but to discuss together how we continue those conversations, how we continue those actions to preserve digital content in a variety of different environments that we know are going to continue to change and evolve over time. So thank you again for being here. We really hope that we're going to spark some ideas. You'll have questions. We'll build some connections that carry forward into our own work and community building going forward. And I'm super, super excited that all of us have the opportunity to work with Sarah Lake, our visiting program officer for digital preservation with Carl. So a huge thank you to Sarah, and I'm going to turn it over to her to sort of guide the rest of the session. So thanks.
Thanks so much, Jeff. And thank you, Elizabeth. And thank you all for making the time to join this call today. I'm just going to begin by acknowledging that I am speaking to you today from unceded Indigenous lands, of which the Kanagahaga Nation is recognized as custodians. I'm going to be starting today with a short presentation. I'll be introducing myself for those of you who don't know me, and also my new role at Carl. Then I'm going to touch a little bit on At Risk North 3. I'll give a short summary of the action planning that came out of the report with the intent to continue the conversations and broaden them as well for those of you who weren't able to attend. and kind of build off that momentum for next steps. And then I'll share some updates from the DPWG on actionable items that came out of At-Risk North. And in particular, I'll give some details about one pretty big project that's in progress, which is the DPC RAM benchmarking exercise that's planned for later this year. And that will conclude the presentation section of the call, and we'll just open it up for discussion. So we're really looking forward to hearing your input on planning and priorities, as well as on At-Risk North and future events. And if ever you have questions or anything comes up during the presentation portion, don't hesitate to just put them in the chat. We can keep it very informal as well. Feel free to raise your hand and speak out loud if you prefer. We're open to any kind of contribution. Okay, so with that said, I will start by introducing myself. So my name is Sarah Lake. I'm the digital preservation librarian at Concordia Library in Montreal. I've been in this role for coming up on 5 years now, and I've been at Concordia for 6 years. Before my current position, I worked in a couple of other capacities at Concordia, including as an archivist at the library's special collections and at the records management department as well. In my current role, I lead and oversee the development of all the infrastructure, policies, and workflows relating to digital preservation at the library. So this includes things like administering the library's Archivematica instances, working with my colleagues to develop and implement preservation processing workflows for our digitized and born digital special collections materials, as well as for materials deposited to our institutional repository. I also do the bulk of our web archiving, and I offer workshops and consultations for faculty and students who have digital preservation needs and questions. So that's pretty much my role at Concordia. And my role at COPPUL is pretty new. So I just started in this past May. So it's a 1-year appointment, and I'm going to be carrying it out 1 day a week remotely. To just give you some ideas about some of the things that I'll be doing, I have my position responsibilities thrown up here, but just to kind of briefly overview, I'm mainly going to be supporting the activities of the DPWG, including developing a multi-year action plan, encouraging collaborative engagement in national planning, facilitating a national benchmarking exercise, participating in community learning and sharing activities such as developing webinars, training sessions, and a community of practice, supporting digital preservation considerations and interests within national digital infrastructure initiatives, and just generally advocating for digital preservation at a national level. And I'll also just take this moment to present myself as a point of contact. So don't hesitate to get in touch with me if you have any comments, questions, or ideas, suggestions relating to the DPWG's work. You can write to me at my Concordia address, and I look forward to connecting with you. Okay, so moving on, I think we can launch our little Zoom poll now, Elizabeth. I just wanted to get a sense of kind of who is in the room and how many people actually attended At-Risk North 3. Okay, so a good number of us. But some people who didn't as well. So that's great. All right. So I'm not going to summarize the whole report. I'll kind of assume that folks have had a chance to look at it. And maybe Elizabeth, you could also just put the link to it in the chat when you have a moment. But I just wanted to briefly touch on some key themes in the action planning section that emerged as areas to further develop and build capacity. So these have really largely informed the working group's planning and priorities for the next couple of years. So the first key area is the need for more community. So as we know, digital preservationists are often pretty isolated in their institutions. So some ideas that emerged here were communities of practice, interinstitutional mentorship opportunities, finding ways for smaller institutions to get the same access and benefits that are offered to larger institutions. And it was also noted in the report that a smaller institution should be represented on the working group. And I'll say more about that in just a little bit. Next, in terms of resources and training, we identified a need for more effective training in digital preservation. The report noted that there was a lot of already really great educational resources offered through the Digital Preservation Coalition, the DPC, but there is a lack of bilingual resources, and it was noted that this is a gap that potentially the B&Q could help address. Next, we noted that a greater support for shared storage needs to be nurtured. So developing shared infrastructure should really be prioritized because we all benefit from shared models. The Ontario Library Research Cloud was mentioned as a pretty helpful existing infrastructure, and it was noted that Scholars Portal's capacity to support national infrastructure services will be strengthened if more institutions join. And finally, the report highlighted the importance of advocacy. So digital preservation has to be part of an ongoing narrative, and there's really a need for champions in the area who are supported to vocalize challenges and advocate for solutions. So I'll invite you to keep these themes and ideas in mind for now, and we will return to them when we come to our discussion period. I think we'll also share in the chat, there was a little pre-call questionnaire that we sent out with a few questions just to kind of kickstart discussion. So if you want to have a look at that, if you haven't had a chance to, I think Elizabeth will put it in the chat as well. I also have some snippets from answers that we've already received on my slides a bit later to kind of facilitate the discussion as well. So there were also a few actionable items in the At-Risk North report. So just to really briefly touch on them, we have a multi-year action plan, a national benchmarking exercise, and the creation of a visiting program officer role for digital preservation. So the working group has made progress on a few of these elements. So, for example, the At-Risk North 3 report was distributed. We created this follow-up webinar to kind of continue the discussion as well. The VPO role was created and filled with myself. And then there's a couple of other things that are in progress. So we're currently working to expand the DPWG membership to include smaller institutions. There was a call that went out, I think, a couple of weeks ago, seeking 2 to 3 additional members from small to medium-sized institutions who are not CARL members. So the idea here is really to include perspectives on the working group that aren't currently being represented. So that call is still open, I think, until the end of next week. So if you're interested, please do, if you have questions and you want to learn more, just don't hesitate to write to us, because it's really important that we get that engagement. The other thing that's in progress currently is the DPC rapid assessment model exercise. So I'm going to say a few more words about this. The purpose of this is really to help us gain insight into the status of digital preservation activities among Canadian organizations, to help us better understand the opportunities and challenges for capacity building and how to provide support for improvement. And it's really just to have a portrait of the state of digital preservation in Canada as well. So maybe we won't try for another Zoom poll, but if your institution has done RAM before, maybe just give your hand a raise so we can see, again, how many folks in the room are in that situation. Okay, nice. I see quite a few. That's great. Okay, so some have, some haven't. Excellent. Okay, so I'll say a couple words about RAM for those of you who aren't familiar with it. So RAM stands for Rapid Assessment Model, and it's a digital preservation maturity modeling tool that was developed by the Digital Preservation Coalition that was designed to enable rapid benchmarking of an organization's digital preservation capability and to facilitate continuous improvement over time. So some things to emphasize about DPC-RAM. As the name suggests, it's meant to be really quick to do. It shouldn't take more than a couple hours or so. It's also quite flexible as a model. So there's no one right way to do it. You can and should adapt it to your organization's context and needs. So for example, there will be sections in the spreadsheet that don't apply to your context, and that's okay. You can just skip them. And finally, RAM is forward-facing. So the purpose is to help guide your decision-making and really set goals for the future. So how are we planning to do this exercise? So this is a very, very tentative timeline that I was given permission to share with the caveat that it is tentative. We're planning to have some kickoff events in the fall that will be bilingual to really just introduce RAM and to provide some support to people who are planning to do the assessment. So things like drop-in clinics, FAQs, other resources to support folks in this exercise. We're going to start with an initial pilot project with Carl schools just to kind of test it out. And then in the winter, we plan to open the initiative to a wider audience. And the outcomes that we're hoping for with this is to do an analysis of the data. So data would be submitted by participating organizations on a voluntary basis. We're currently looking into ways to anonymize the data to make people more comfortable. And with that data, we hope to produce a report on the state of digital preservation in Canada, which I think will be really incredible, valuable information to have. So that's about all the information I have to share right now. I know a couple of folks on the working group are on the call who are working on this project. So if you ever want to share more information, please feel free. But stay tuned. There will be more announcements soon. And in the meantime, if you're interested in getting involved, you can put your email in the bottom of the form that was just shared a bit earlier. And we'll be in touch with you with opportunities to contribute to the project. So I think I just wanted to wrap up by mentioning a couple of other initiatives that the working group is working on that are still in kind of early stages, but that we would still welcome input and feedback on as well. So the Scolaris Digital Preservation Expert Group is working on a preservation toolkit for repositories currently. And there's some overlapping members with that group and the DPWG who are working to update and adapt some existing documentation that we had on policy development to kind of add to this toolkit. So that's an ongoing joint effort that's happening at the moment. And the other thing is we're looking into ways to repatriate Canadian web archiving data, specifically work files that are generated using Archivate's, the Internet Archive's Archivate service. So given the current geopolitical environment and the funding situation for memory institutions in the US, there's a growing sort of concern to ensure that Canadian organizations are not relying solely on a third-party archive, which is facing growing risk. So there's a really great conversation that's been happening over the past few months on the QUAC listserv. That's the Canadian Web Archiving Coalition. Lots of really great ideas have been shared there, including developing a national work storage service or hosting workshops on how to download your own works. So we're not sure at this point exactly what shape this kind of shared solution will take, but we're very much open to continuing that conversation here as well and having your input. And I think that is it for the presentation section. So I think if anyone has any questions on anything I just said, please feel free to ask away. But besides, I think maybe we'll stop the recording and jump into discussion.